Reader and news host Matt Walsh put out a documentary called What is a Woman to allegedly find out what is a woman. Let's watch this 6-minute clip from the movie, and then I'm going to give my response to this absolutely psychologically fascinating conversation.
What we do in gender studies is not just reduce gender to what psychologists might call individual differences, but rather thinking about gender. And that's not women and man, but gender as a social form, something that kind of infuses itself into virtually all aspects of social life.
Let's talk about that then. I guess we should start with, we've got gender and sex, right?
Yeah.
What's the difference between the two? Is there a difference?
I saw that in your questions and I thought, my goodness, this is what we spend an entire semester kind of thinking through. But what we tend to think about in the social sciences today is that sex refers to a set of biological characteristics and gender is a social construct or category. What I think is often misleading about that characterization is allowed to be sort of messy and complicated. But in that framing, when you split them up into these wholly discrete constructs, studies scholars, and really more specifically people who study gender and sex, we're not talking about sexuality right now. In the kind of academic universe that I travel in is that we see how deeply gendered ideas, cultural ideas about masculinity and femininity, maleness and femaleness, both in humans and in lots of other animals.
So are gender and sex two different things, or?
Well, I think that they both are and they aren't. I'm comfortable saying that gender and sex are two different constructs, but they're deeply intertwined with each other.
We're talking about gender and sex, and there's a lot of controversies there. If we're talking about a trans woman has all of the male physical characteristics, so would that not be a male then? Couldn't we plainly say this person is a male?
Well, I guess it's like, why are you asking the question? I think I want to understand sort of why that's so important. So if someone tells you...
Just to sort of understand reality, you know?
Well, I mean, I think when someone tells you who they are, you should believe them. So if a person says that they're a woman or they're a man, then that's them telling you who their gender is. I'm not so sure what social... interactions would have to do with maleness or femaleness that would.
Well, I'm not even talking about social context. I'm just trying to start by getting to the truth. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really uncomfortable with that language of like getting to the truth again in social life.
Why is that uncomfortable?
Because it sounds actually deeply transphobic to me. And if you keep probing, we're going to stop the interview.
If I probe about what the truth is?
You keep invoking the word truth, which is condescending and rude. I'm saying to you...
How is the word truth condescending and rude?
Why don't you tell me what your truth is, and you're walking on 30 seconds more of thin ice before I get up.
What my truth is? Well, I don't think I really have a truth. I think that there's just the truth, like the reality. And so we should begin by trying to figure out what the reality is.
Uh-huh. And why are you concerned with when someone else tells you that they're a man, or even if they use the word male, why are you concerned with not believing them?
Well, you keep bringing it back to, you know, how do you respond in a social situation? But,
that's what I do. I'm a social scientist.
Well, right, but we're in a university. This is a place of understanding truth, isn't it? Or
absolutely. We pursue truth, and I'm a social scientist, and that's what I do.
But you just said the truth is transphobic.
That you would say, that if you're saying the truth is that I get to say, you're not a man, show me your genitalia, that's transphobic.
No, I don't want to see anybody's genitalia. I just mean someone can make a statement about themselves that could be untrue. Like, for example, if I were to say that I'm a black man, would you accept that, or would you be skeptical?
Are you black? Are you African American? Are you biracial?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, you don't look that, and I don't think it doesn't sound like that's a genuine statement of who you are.
Okay, so that's my point. I could make a statement about who I am that's incorrect.
Of course, I think it's well established that human beings can lie, yes.
Or not even lie. I mean, I could just be mistaken.
Yeah.
I'm
not sure where you're going.
I guess this all comes back, this all comes down to really one question, especially women, gender, and sexuality studies. So what is a woman?
Why do you ask that question?
I just really like to know.
What do you think the answer to that question is?
Well, I'm asking. That's why I came to a college professor who's this is what you do.
What other kinds of answers have you gotten?
A lot of like this, where you're not answering, and I've gotten a lot of that. So
I think it's interesting that you say that some of the people you've interviewed have been reluctant to answer it, and I think that has a lot to do with the questions that preceded it, and the way that you've conducted yourself in the interview.
how have I conducted myself?
How do you think you've conducted yourself?
You just really don't want to answer the questions, do you?
I came today very willing and enthusiastic about answering questions about women's and gender sexuality studies, which is the work that I do.
You wanted to answer questions about women's studies, and so shouldn't the first answer you should be able to provide is what exactly is a woman?
Well, for me, it's actually a really simple answer, and that's a person who identifies as a woman.
But what are they identifying as?
As a woman.
But what is that?
As a woman.
Do you know what a circular definition is?
I do.
It's sort of like what you're doing right now, where a woman is a woman.
Mm-hmm. Well, because you're seeking what we would call in my field of work an essentialist definition of gender. I think it sounds like you would like me to give you a set of biological or cultural characteristics that are associated with one gender or the other.
I'm not seeking any type of definition. I'm just seeking a definition.
Yeah, and I gave you one.
What's going on, everybody? So I found that clip on Twitter. Somebody had posted it, right? I tagged Matt Walsh. I said it's fascinating. I saw Ben Shapiro retweeted it. Appreciate that. I'm going to have to watch that documentary. I haven't seen the full one yet, but I know it's doing very well. It's called What is a Woman by Matt Walsh, put out by Daily Wire. And, I guess the most important thing in all this stuff, I'm not trying to be mean, rude, hateful. I'm a pretty thoughtful person. In order to be a woman, what is a woman? That's the question he's asking. And the guy's like, it is whatever. And it's like, but what is it though? And it's like, that's the most psychologically fascinating part of this whole thing is like, what is a woman? Whatever it, but how can you get what I'm saying? How can you transition from a man to a woman? You're transitioning into something, or else you just stay a man, right? Even if you respect, and this is where it really gets crazy, because although Matt Walsh takes a hardline stance, I know he's getting a lot of hate and he goes hard in the paint. This is going to destroy the whole LGBT movement and the country, because you can't even define what you're doing. If we don't have definitions, rules, like some sort of 1 + 1 is 2, right? We do math. We have our whole system is based off of math. Everybody has accountants at major firms because they're adding up these numbers. If 1 + 1 isn't 2 anymore, if it's just like, it's whatever you want, none of this will function. So even if you are transgender, even if you are gay and you're transitioning into a woman, you have to at least know, even in your own logic, that you're not something and you want to be more like something. But the fact that they've gotten so politically correct that they won't even say what a woman is actually destroys their entire movement, because it's like, what's the point of transition? You don't even know what you're transitioning to. What makes you now from a man to a woman? What's the differences? What changed? Whatever you want it to be, whatever I want it to be. What does that mean? If I say so, he said, if someone tells you who they are, believe them. If I say I'm a tree, I'm an alien from Pluto, and I'm a water bottle, I'm a beam of like, you have to believe me. If I say my skin is looks like that square, you have to believe me. Doesn't make any sense. So it's like they're going to end up, a lot of people don't agree with all the stuff that the movement's doing, but even if you're part of that movement, you have to understand there is going to be no movement soon. You're going to collapse on yourself, because if you can't even identify what you don't even want to give a definition. It's too hateful, or not so safe space enough to give a definition. Then nothing matters. What's the point of transitioning into something that you don't even know what it is? What is that thing that you want to be, which is why you're taking estrogen and why some people are getting these and some people are doing plastic. Why are you doing all that? You're doing it to look like a woman, but you won't even say what a woman is, because that's how far some of these people have gone. It's absolutely mind-blowing. And it's funny because, I don't know if this is funny, but I guess I have to have a sense of humor about it. The original trailblazers of the LGBT movement, like gay and lesbian people, people like Ellen DeGeneres and stuff, it's like I've heard like podcasts from people like Tim Dillon, who's a gay man, and he's just like, there's lesbian bars that are closing now because nobody identifies as lesbian, and there's lesbians that just want to be around women, but you have these like safe space social justice warrior LGBTs saying you're not allowed to have a lesbian event because we want transgenders there, that's a woman. And the lesbians are like, no, we want all V's, we don't want the P's, we don't want that genitalia at our event, we've done it for like 30-40 years, we're lesbians, we just don't want any penises there. Sorry, I just had to say the word. And it's like, you got now the LGBT movement like erasing lesbian people because they don't think that you should be allowed to only like one genitalia, even if it's your own. Like, that's how crazy it's gotten. So if you're like a traditional L and a G, or like lesbian, gay, if you're one of the originals, it's like they're like erasing you. And now this self-fulfilling prophecy is going to fall in on its head anyway. Outside of everybody's opinion perspective, I get it. Not everybody has to agree with sodomy all the time. I know they're trying to be like Pride Month, just do whatever all the time. And it's like, everybody doesn't want to, wear rainbow flags all the time like people on the Tampa Bay Rays. But I think the most important part of this interview, I don't want to spend too much time. I'm going to weigh in on a few parts, but it's like mind blowing. I watched it like twice and I'm like, the fact that he's too afraid or too fake or too politically correct to even identify what a woman is. And I think that's the point that Matt Walsh is getting to in the documentary, among many. It doesn't make any sense, right? It doesn't make any sense. You won't even identify what a woman or a man is because it's offensive, yet people are transitioning. You have to give a definition. Things need to mean something. If things don't mean anything, everything collapses in on itself. I'm not trying to be dramatic, but like this entire civilization will collapse on itself if 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. If we don't have certain scientific norms that even if you go off and do something crazy that may not be moral or politically correct, we can at least say that's what you're doing, right? I don't have to agree with it, but Caitlyn Jenner, Bruce Jenner turned into Caitlyn Jenner, said he did because he wanted characteristics of a woman. And if you ask Caitlyn Jenner, I'm sure they'd tell you what a woman is. But these type of like far left LGBT social scientists are so in their own head that they won't even define what a woman is in the first place, which is obvious because there are people that are trying to change into one. How can you change into something that you don't even know what it is, or you can't say what it is? Then how can you even change? How can you even transition? I think these people are so full of crap that they know it. That's why when Matt Walsh said, I just want to get to the truth, and he said, I'm uncomfortable. That type of wording makes me uncomfortable. It makes you uncomfortable in a debate about social sciences. Someone saying, hey, I want to get to the truth. If I sat down with someone and said, hey, Anomaly, we're going to talk about geopolitics, I want to get to the truth. I'm like, this guy's going to be my friend, right? He wants to get to the truth. I want to get to the truth. This is going to be a good conversation. But that guy, it's his field of conduct, right? That's what he does, apparently. Hey, let's get to the truth. Whoa, Mister, you're on very thin ice. I'm gonna storm out of this interview because I don't like your attitude. And Matt Walsh was being super nice, especially on a scale of how not nice Matt could probably be. He was being very well behaved, very nice. And the thought of the truth just bothered this guy. They always say, my truth. And I think Matt Walsh feels the same way, but it's like, there's the truth. You know what I'm saying? My truth sounds like a liar to me. Like, oh, this is the truth. This is what happened that night with that woman was the truth. But my truth, I remember it differently. It's like, just say you're lying, just like my truth. They don't want to get to the truth. They just want there is no my truth. There's the truth. If your truth is the truth, then the truth is on your side. If your truth isn't the truth, then you're just lying. So this is their new get around. It's like, yeah, well, on the night of Jussie Smollett, this is what happened. That's the truth. But my truth is I'm so concerned with all this other stuff that I'm pathologically lying about everything, but I justify it because that's my truth. Like, that's what these my truthers are. And obviously the one part that stood out to me, and I'm going to keep this video pretty brief so it's pretty shareable. He said, if someone tells you who they are, believe them. So now we don't have any sort of discernment. We're not supposed to be skeptical. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying everybody's a con artist. I'm a pretty nice guy, but like, if someone tells you who they are, believe them. Is that how the world works now? That's why when you see some of these movements, it's not even just like this is how I sexually and socially feel. Now it's turning into this big blob of like, they don't even have a rainbow flag anymore. Everything's involved and it just turns into like a QR code. I'm serious. It's like every color's in it. Oh my, it's like now it looks ugly. You know what I'm saying? Like a rainbow, like an actual rainbow. I don't even like looking at the flag anymore. I'm not going to lie. It disgusts me. But looking at an actual rainbow is beautiful. Rainbows are beautiful. But now you add this, it's not a rainbow anymore. It's like an alien, threw up on a QR code. And now it's like, that is a metaphor for what you guys are doing to everything. You're ruining everything because you can't define certain words. You're not allowing people to have like discipline, discipline is important. Freedom is important. I think freedom of speech to do what you want in a moral way. But discipline is what makes somebody great. Discipline is what makes somebody good at their job. You can't just do everything all the time. So a lot of this pride stuff is just turning into a sin month. It's not just pride. It's also gluttony and sloth and envy and, all of the sins combined where it's like, I'll believe you even if you lie to me. My truth is the truth, and there's no, fitness doesn't matter. And I'm not like a fitness supremacist. I'm just saying there's certain truths like I talk about here all the time. I can't judge people because I'm not in perfect, physical fitness myself. There's a lot of improvements I can make physically, mentally, all this stuff, spiritually. But it's like there are truth. It's like if I walk around like looking like this versus if I put on, let's just say 300 pounds, and now I'm like 500 pounds. You could just lie to me and say, hey, like, you don't have to tell me, but it's like, oh, you're healthier than somebody that's like 200 pounds. Like, not really. You know what I'm saying? Like, there is a physical, toll to carrying around extra weight. Like, even myself, there's improvements I could make that would make my life better. But I know that. If somebody tells me, it's not like I've never heard it before. I mean, if they're a dick, it's one thing. You don't have to like them as people. You can counter them and say, who cares? Mind your own business. But there is like a certain truth where it's like being 500 pounds is going to cost a huge toll to your health. That's just, but in the LGBTQ plus movement, there's none of that, right? Throw all discipline out the window, throw all logic, science, and reason out the window. Anything goes, and we'll accept you and act like it's amazing. And it's nice to be nice to people. Don't get me wrong. Even people that sin, even people that are doing something that's not good for them. It's nice to be thoughtful and appreciative and compassionate. I'm not saying that. It's just like at a certain point, sometimes the tough truth is important, but nobody wants to hear it. So this movement's getting sloppier and sloppier, grosser and grosser, more degenerate, more sinful, combining all the sins together. And then if you say something about it, they don't even want to debate. I think that's the worst part. It's like, hey, at least let's have a conversation with our first. Oh, no, everything's offensive. Everything's racist, sexist, xenophobic, transphobic. To the point where now these people are so entitled. That guy was so entitled that the truth, the word the truth bothered him. Not Matt Walsh being a dick, like he can be, to be honest. I'm not knocking him. I like Matt a lot. I'm just saying he knows he likes to poke buttons and stuff. He's that kind of guy. He wasn't even doing that then. He's like literally sitting there acting totally polite, and these people are bothered by it. That's just like the coddling of their or fake social, nonsense, the coddling of their just implosion of society. And this is where I think people like Matt understand it way more than the GOP, because the GOP has no problem waving rainbow flags and just gatekeeping the slippery slope and calling everybody, we're one big tent. And listen, I like being nice. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just saying in general, Matt Walsh takes a harder line stance, and I don't know his true, agenda. I don't know how he really feels, but I have to say, watching his video, and I will watch the whole documentary. This isn't a paid ad, by the way. Nobody hit me up from Daily Wire or Matt Walsh. I just saw this on Twitter, found it fascinating, and I covered what I wanted to do. I'm going to watch the doc and support it, but really just like I'm curious, because more than even just my personal opinions and feelings about what people should do with their personal and private life, I find it fascinating that they're literally just destroying words. You can't transition from a man to a woman if you can't define what a woman is. You can't transition from a woman to a man if you don't even know what the word man means. If you're not even man enough to define the word man, how the heck could you turn into something? I'm going to turn into a tree. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, so what's a tree? Well, I would say a tree is this massive thing that grows in the ground. It's got wood and leaves, and it's all different shapes and sizes. Yeah, it could be unique. I'm not just one type of tree, but a tree is something. If I can't define a tree, I can't turn into a tree. But it's like I'm turning into a tree. Hey, Anomaly, what's a tree? I don't know. How could you not know? How could you not know what a tree is if you're going to turn into... It's whatever you want it to be. How could I... You get what I'm saying? You can't do something unless you know what you're doing. I'm going to the beach. What's a beach? I mean, a place with sand and ocean? Oh, that's beach phobic. A beach is not... I mean, that's beach phobic. If you think that a beach is something with sand and an ocean, it doesn't have to be. It could, could be anything. And it's like, then how are you going to go there if you can't define what it is? These people are going to destroy everything. And the Democrats are full-blown supporting it, subsidizing it, pushing it, making it worse in the media. But here's the uncomfortable reality for a lot of people, and why somebody like Matt Walsh is unique on the right. The GOP is gatekeeping the same stuff. As the left wing pushes it forward, the Republicans are doing going further left than like Hillary Clinton in 2001, and they will call you nasty names as well if you try to combat any element of their agenda. And it's like, I don't have to pretend like, there's a lot of Christians that say sex out of wedlock's bad. Even if you have sex out of wedlock, what are you going to stop them from saying it? Oh, that's, sex phobic. You can't say it. It's like, get over it. If you want to have sex out of wedlock, it shouldn't bother you that much what a pastor says, right? Unless you need everyone to shut up about what you're doing. But it's the same thing with like the LGBTQ. It's like they're all over the place, at Democrat events, Republican events. Okay, but nobody can disagree with any sort of your sexual, feelings or everyone's got to agree. No one can say any different. You just do. It's like, that's not reality. You could say to me, Anomaly, your hair's long. It looks like a girl. I've had Christians hit me up and say, the Bible says not to have long hair. And then others say Jesus had long hair. I need to get more familiar with it. But even that guy I didn't get upset at, because it's like, it is what it is. I understand more women than men have long hair, and that's a reality of life. I'm not going to shut down everybody's opinion of what I should look like just because it makes me self-conscious. And this is the nicest thing I could say to people like, Ellen or Elliot Page now that are writing op-eds and stuff. At the end of the day, you have to be comfortable with yourself. You have to love yourself, and you have to, there's always going to be someone judging your appearance, no matter what you're transitioning to, even though nobody can apparently even name what they're trying to be. But once you get to that point in yourself, no one could really throw you off. Of course, they could hurt your feelings a little bit, but what's starting to happen is a bunch of like self-conscious people and a bunch of people that, in my opinion, like with this guy, it feels like he knows that he's doing the wrong thing, or he feels like he knows he's lying, because if you can't even define what someone's going to, then how can they even go to it? So it's like, but the more they lie and the more they feel uncomfortable, instead of getting debates and conversations and feedback, they're trying to close out that feedback. And that's why you see this runs like completely parallel to the fact that now Joe Rogan's hate speech, and, Tucker Carlson needs to be kicked off television. And it's like now Dave Chappelle's getting tackled at shows because they're brainwashing people to think that a joke is violence. So now you have these deranged people attacking, one of the most successful comedians in the last 20 years who doesn't have an anti-LGBT bone in his body, but you still it's like, this is what it's leading to, because they can't take feedback. So once you become comfortable, none of this stuff will bother you. But what you have is a bunch of uncomfortable people, a bunch of people that are don't know who they are, or trying to figure it out on this journey of life, doing stuff and not accepting feedback, which sometimes is exactly what you need. Sometimes you need the tough friend that says, hey, I love you. I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but, or sometimes it's something really bad happens in your life. Sometimes you get to this, you're this huge. And I've heard so many stories where they had a health incident, and that's what, knocked them into shape. And then they lost 100 pounds. So, reality will set in one way or another. And whether it's Matt Walsh or somewhere else, we need to be able to talk about it. And we certainly need to, most importantly, over all of this, we need to be able to define certain things. Certain things need a definition. I'm open-minded, I'm creative, I'm thoughtful. You know, I understand like being different and unique. I'm not telling you you have to be this or you have to be that when it comes to like your career, etc. I'm all for like, you know, writing creative songs, but when it comes to like 1 + 1 is 2, man, woman, we need to have a definition. And if a definition offends you, society's not going to be able to function anymore. Because if they do with math what they're doing with gender, you know, the entire system will collapse and everybody will be broke because no one will even know what anything means anymore. So I just find that fascinating. You know, I want to transition from a man to a woman. Okay, sure. So what is a woman? I don't know. So what are you trying? I don't know. A woman is a woman. But what is that? That's mind-blowing. If you like this video, feel free to share it. And God bless you guys. God bless your family. God bless America. God bless the world. Fascinating clip. Had to share it. I'll probably be back later with another stream. And I'll have some more podcasts later this week. If you like this video on Facebook, share it. If you like it on YouTube, you can too. If you don't want to, all gravy. Just a suggestion. I appreciate every like and share and all that stuff. Appreciate it so much.